Hi everyone, welcome to Itsy Bitsy's live read from Broken by Love by M.J. Masucci. Chapter 1. What am I going to do? I already quit my old job at Richards and meeting with the vice president of marketing at my new one, Barker and Perez. I was so excited. I hadn't paid attention to the name of the man who would train me and be my boss, J. Camden Lawson. It didn't occur to me that it was J.C. Yes, that J.C., the one who had beaten me out of the director's position at my first job. The same one who always taught me in high school and broke off our engagement 4 months before we were about to be married. I sat in his large office staring at the placard with his name perched on the front of his cherry wood desk. I reached out and ran my fingers over the gold lettering of his name. I was so engrossed in what I was doing, I didn't hear J.C. enter the room. Behind me, he snorted, and I turned to see his rakish good looks. He's still gorgeous, with his square jaw, left chin, and perpetually stubbled face. I found it hard to keep in mind that this was a man who seemed to win out over me every time. J.C. was the last person I wanted to be my boss. It was because he still made me moist between my legs. I shifted in my seat and watched him cross the few feet to his desk, and as graceful as ever. J.C. fixed on me his gray steel eyes. The intensity of his stare made me shiver, and I had to avert my gaze to my lap as I loudly exhaled. He chuckled and opened the folder which had my name, Alexa Stanford, written across the tab of on the top. I guess I don't have to go over your credentials, Lexi. Now do I? J.C. said. No, you should be well aware of my qualifications, and my name is Alexa. It wasn't when we were together. I sighed. J.C., that was a long time ago. It was, and it's Camden now. I started to laugh hard. He had always been J.C., Jonathan Camden Lawson, the fourth. It sounded so pretentious, and he knew it. I think that's why he preferred to be called by his initials for as long as I had known him. J.C. scowled. Aren't you quite finished? I'm not sure we'll be able to work together. You know our history and all. I gaped at him. You're going to fire me because you broke off our engagement? I broke it off for good reason. Neither of us were ready for that level of commitment. J.C.'s mouth set in a hard line as he narrowed his eyes. Most people would remain work together to work it out, but you broke it off and broke my heart in the process, I said as I shifted in the black leather chair. It creaked with my movement. I watched as J.C. ran his hand through his thick mahogany brown hair. It made me remember how I loved to tug and pull on it while he had his head between my legs. I wondered if it was as soft as I remembered. I loved to run my fingers through the thick strands as he held me in his arms. My chest tightened and a lump formed in my throat. J.C. knew so much about me, how to boost my confidence with a single look from across the room or a stroke of his pinky across the back of my hand. I shook the memory away, not wanting to give him any credit for making me feel good. It was a long time ago. I've moved on, and from what I heard, so have you, J.C. said. I knew J.C. was referring to my recent engagement. He must have spoken to a few of our mutual acquaintances or read the announcement my mother insisted Noah and I have in the New York Times. I had moved on, but often when Noah and I made love, J.C.'s face would pop into my mind. The things my former fiancé could do to my body and the mind-blowing orgasms he gave me were hard to forget. It wasn't because Noah was inattentive in bed, because he wasn't. His brand of making love was very different from J.C.'s. However, Noah Wilton was stable and loving. There was no worry that he would cheat on me the way there was with J.C. Yes, I have. How is your wife? I asked. J.C.'s face tightened. Brianna is spending plenty of my money in the Bahamas right now. She went on a girls' trip. I'm on my own for a few days. Maybe you could spare some time and we could have lunch. Once again, I needed to avert my eyes from his gaze because of the dreamy look on his face. Immediately, my stomach tightened. Why? JC stared at me, now stone-faced. I could see the muscle in his jaw clenching. To decide if we can work together without our past interfering. JC? Camden, he said with his eyebrows knitted. Camden, I put aside our past if you can. This is a job that I've long deserved. I knew I shouldn't have antagonized JC, but I couldn't resist. You do deserve it, and I'll admit it. You did deserve the director's job at Carver & Carver, but they gave it to me. I'd say that several rounds of golf helped seal the deal. JC's jaw now bulged with tension. Let's not dredge up what happened years ago. Please see Darlene in HR. She'll get you set up in your office and you can meet your assistant. So you're not firing me? Don't be ridiculous. I know a good employee when I see one. I have some free time at 1. I'll have my assistant make reservation at French's Steakhouse. My heart jumped. Why there? I almost screeched. They have great food and I can get a reservation even on short notice, JC mentioned nonchalantly. There was a symbolism in his choice of restaurants. He tried to play it off as if he didn't remember. It was a place I would never forget. French's was one of the restaurants JC and I frequented when we were together. A friend, Paul Boringo, from our days at NYU, owned it. It had high tan leather booths which offered privacy. The place catered to the business crowd and you couldn't get inside without a jacket. Jeans were not allowed. It was there that JC first got me off in public. My face began to redden at the thought. Are you feeling all right? You looked flushed, JC asked. Fine. Are we done? He knew exactly what he was doing. Yes, we're done. I'll speak with you at lunch. He rose to walk me to the door and stood much too close for my taste. I could feel the heat of his body next to me, his cologne wafting into my nose, and my core began to flame. After so many years, it surprised me that just his presence could elicit this type of response. Later, Lexi, JC said, almost in a whisper. I nodded, not bothering to correct my name, and hurried out of his office, heading straight for the ladies' room. Fortunately, it was empty. JC was right. My face was bright red. How was I going to work for him when he had this effect on me? I stared into the mirror and smoothed my shoulder-length, tawny blonde hair. My eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep the night before. I freshened up my makeup and smoothed my navy blue pencil skirt before I headed down to the HR department to find out my office assignment. Darlene, the HR manager, assigned me to an office 2 doors down from JC. Shit, I just wanted to be so far from him as I could get, but as my boss, we would have constant contact anyways. Darlene gave me the key, and I headed down to my office. Upon opening the door, I could see it tastefully decorated, but much too masculine for my liking, in rich tones of dark wood, blue walls, and brown leather furniture. It wasn't my style, but I could live with it. I hung my coat on the rack behind my desk and sat down in the black ergonomic chair. It suits you. I startled. I looked up to see JC leaning against the door jamb with ridiculous smirk on his face. I guess it does, though it is a bit too dark in here for me. I'll have to get some artwork to lighten up the walls. The last person to occupy this office was a man. You can request a new paint job, one that would work better for your feminine tastes. Thank you, but no. I want to get straight to work. It would disrupt my day. JC frowned. For fuck's sake, Lexi. They paint at night. Your office would be back together before you came in the morning. I see you still have a touch of perfection. I do not, and I asked you to please call me Alexa. I wanted to smack the smirk off his face. Before I could answer, his cell phone rang. JC fished it out of his shirt pocket. Brianna, enjoying yourself? I heard him say as he headed back to his office. This was going to be fun. I couldn't wait to get him back when we had lunch. I spent the rest of the morning working on my schedule and organizing my office with my new assistant, Nikki. She was several years younger than me, but intelligent and eager to learn. She reminded me of myself at her age of 22, fresh out of college, pretty, petite, and ready to take on the world. At 12:55, JC showed up at my door. Ready to go? He nodded at Nikki as she slipped by him when she exited my office. I watched JC as his eyes followed her down the hall. Typical. He was still looking for something on the side, even now that he was married. What had I ever seen in him? I knew the answer, but ignored it. I grabbed my coat and stepped out of my office to join him. The elevator ride was awkward and silent until the tense mood was broken by some other occupants entering from a few floors below ours. JC moved next to me to allow them room. He was pressed right up against me, which I found unnerving. I didn't want the same thing to happen as had earlier. Fortunately, it was a beautiful spring afternoon with a bright breeze. French's was 2 short blocks out from our building, and for that I thanked my lucky stars. I wasn't sure I could handle being trapped next to JC in a cab for any length of time. As we walked to French's, our hands brushed. His touch was electric, and I quickly pulled my hand away as if we were on fire. I could feel my face heating. "Are you sure you're okay today? Your face is flushed again," JC asked. "I'm fine, just hungry." "Let's get you fed then." Ever the perfect gentleman, he held the thick smoked glass door for me and ushered me inside. The hostess flashed him a toothy grin and showed him to a booth in the back. We weaved through the round white linen tablecloth tables. The restaurant was crowded, but there were booths closer to the front. It made me wonder if JC requested this one. This booth had history for us. It was the one that we had always occupied when we ate here. It was also the one where I first learned how to keep quiet when climaxing. I still remember the look on JC's face when I did, and how he sucked on his fingers after tasting me. Now to think about it made me embarrassed. "Am I the reason why you're blushing?" "You're so arrogant. Why would you think that?" I asked. "Well, it's just because this is the booth. You know." "And you did plan it that way." "Not at all. I come here all the time." "Do you sit in this booth when you come here with Brianna?" "No, I don't share this booth with any other women, and never have. You were the only one." I look up at him and see a bit of sadness in his face. I need to change the subject. The noise level in the high-ceilinged restaurant ebbs and flows with conversation of the other patrons, but it's not enough to make me raise my voice. "What can you tell me about the company?" I asked. "I trust you did your research on them, knowing you." "I did, but I mean, what is it like? What is the working atmosphere like?" "It's cozy. Everyone gets along for the most part. There is some competitiveness, but it's mostly from the younger, recently graduated set. How do you like Nikki? She started a few months ago and worked for your predecessor. She's very competent and bright. I'm lucky because my last assistant was a bit ditzy." Our conversation ceases as the waiter takes our food and drink orders. I stick to plain seltzer with lime. JC has a beer. I smooth a wrinkle out of the white tablecloth, and JC smirks. "I read about your engagement in the Times. Noah is your fiancé's name?" JC asked. "Yes. It said he owns a small security firm. What exactly does he do?" "He provides security for executives." "Is there much need for that?" "There is if you deal with certain countries. Usually his agents travel with the clients." "Does he do that sort of thing?" "He used to, but not much anymore. I prefer to have him home." I began to feel uncomfortable talking about Noah. I felt JC was searching for information about my fiancé. I surged to another topic. "What about Brianna? What does she do during the day when you're at work?" "She has hobbies which keep her busy." "Hobbies?" Yes, she has her book club, yoga, spin class, pottery class, and a few other things. I raise my eyebrows. She doesn't work? Why should she? I make plenty to support us both. She's finding herself. Besides, she isn't much older than Nikki and has plenty of time to start her career. It doesn't surprise me. JC always could have his head easily turned by a younger woman. At least he did when we were together. I don't know why I was so upset when he broke off our engagement. I should have been relieved. Thank you for listening to this portion of this book.